Allie had a bad relationship with her classmates and was isolated at school.
Smith said that. But it seems the truth was a bit different. That's why I thought maybe someone had come to see Allie. With that in mind, I checked the security cameras at home.
Maybe among those who came to visit, there was a boy.
I continued to watch the footage stored on the cloud with that sole purpose. And finally, I found that person. I was taken aback by this surprising figure.
No way! Is this Allie's?
I was shocked in front of my computer. People lie, but the footage from the security cameras never lies. That means what I'm watching is the truth. Faced with this unbelievable reality, I was dumbfounded. But at the same time, anger started to well up inside me. I can't forgive this person, not ever. For Allie's future, I cannot overlook this. The one who toyed with Allie will surely pay, so they better be ready. With that vow in my heart, I copied the security footage to my smartphone. My name is Kelly. At 35, I work as a nurse at the local hospital. As many people know, being a nurse is quite a tough job. But it's this job that I believe has brought me my current happiness. In fact, it was at the hospital where I work that I met Tom, who is 1 year older than me. Our meeting came about when Tom, who works in construction, came to the hospital after an injury at work.
Am I in heaven?
That's what Tom said when he saw me. That amused me, and it led to us dating. A year later, we got married, and our daughter Allie was born. That was 11 years ago. I was so happy then, but now I'm worried about Allie. Actually, for about a year now, Allie has been cooped up at home. What's the right thing to do? These days, I'm constantly racking my brain over Allie. If I knew why Allie was shutting herself away, maybe I could do something about it. But Allie won't answer any of my questions. And we can't think of anything that might have caused this. In short, all we can do is watch over Allie. That's the situation in our household. However, up until a year ago, Allie was such a good kid. She excelled academically and was athletic too. Of course, I don't know for sure about her school life. But from what Allie told me, it seemed like she had many friends. Hearing just this, you'd think there were no problems. In fact, Mr. Smith, her teacher, once said, "Allie is a very talented student. She's good at both studies and sports, and she's someone her friends rely on." Mr. Smith said this during a meeting a year ago. I was so pleased to hear that, I jokingly replied, "That must be thanks to you, right? She's naturally a brilliant student." Mr. Smith said with a wry smile. Then, Tom, sitting next to me, said grumpily, "Of course, she is. She's my daughter, after all. His guidance has nothing to do with it."
Hey! Why would you say something like that all of a sudden?
You said it was all thanks to the teacher. Tom grumbled with a frown. I sighed in exasperation. Needless to say, we were both just exchanging pleasantries. While it may be true that Allie has always been a good kid, the guidance she received at school is indispensable. Knowing this, I made such a comment with care. But it seems Tom didn't catch on. True, Tom can be quite impulsive. Yet, I thought he had the common sense to let comments like that slide.
Can you just keep quiet for a bit? I'll talk to the teacher.
But
I get you're proud of Allie, but you can't always just say what you're really thinking,
I said a bit sternly. Tom then turned away with a huff. It was just like dealing with a child. Despite that, I apologized to Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry about my husband's comment.
No, it's just that your daughter means a lot to you, Mr. Smith replied, still with a wry smile. After Mr. Smith left, I explained the situation to Tom. It took 30 minutes of explaining before Tom finally understood our interaction. This tumultuous parent-teacher visit happened just a bit before Allie started to shut herself in. Then, one day, sometime after that, Allie wouldn't get up as usual. Tom went off to work like any other day. With my work time approaching, I called out to Allie.
Allie? Still sleeping? It's time to go to school.
Yeah. She sounded listless. Puzzled, I continued.
Are you feeling sick somewhere?
Yeah, a little. I'm coming in, okay? After saying that, I entered Allie's room. Allie was curled up in bed. I wondered if she might have caught a cold, so I asked her.
Do you feel sick somewhere? Did you catch a cold?
My head hurts. Allie answered without showing her face. I thought she might have a cold, so I touched her forehead. She didn't seem to have a fever, but from the gap in the blankets, I could see Allie looked pale. It wouldn't be good to force her. With that thought, I told her.
I'll tell your teacher you'll be staying home today.
Okay, thanks.
I'll have Grandma come over later.
After that conversation, I left Allie's room and called the school. Then, intending to ask for someone to watch over her while I was out, I contacted my mother-in-law.
Allie is not feeling well. Could you come over just for the afternoon? All right, dear. But I can't stay for too long.
My mother-in-law is a homemaker, but she has to take care of the house and my father-in-law too. It seems like watching over her granddaughter for a long time would be difficult. At that time, I thought Allie was just temporarily unwell. So, it would be fine just for now. That's why I asked my mother-in-law what was possible. True to her word, my mother-in-law came over for a few hours. She checked on Allie, took care of her meals, and then went home in the evening. A few hours after that, I came home. When I went to see Allie, she was in bed.
Did you do okay, Allie? Yeah. Grandma came over.
That's good. I hope you get better soon, I said, then left Allie's room. But the next day, Allie didn't leave her bed. No, it would be more accurate to say she couldn't. Anyway, Allie couldn't go to school.
Allie, did something happen at school?
Not really. Allie wouldn't tell me the reason. Bothered by this, I went to the school and talked to Mr. Smith.
So, she can't get up in the morning. That's troubling.
Mr. Smith frowned. I wondered if he had any clue. As I thought this, Mr. Smith let out a deep sigh and hesitantly began to speak.
Actually, it seems Allie has been isolated recently.
Mr. Smith's story went like this. A bit ago, during lunch break, Mr. Smith was planning to take a quiz and went to the classroom to get a textbook. While the children were happily making noise, Allie was sitting all by herself. Finding it unusual, Mr. Smith spoke to Allie. But Allie said nothing was wrong.
However, I was a bit concerned, so I started paying more attention from then on. And? It seemed she was a bit isolated.
He inquired discreetly among the students, but the reason was unclear. However, it seems Allie isn't getting along with her friends. Lately, their relationship has gotten particularly strained, to the point where she hardly talks to them. Mr. Smith told me something along those lines. With that, there wasn't much I could do.
I see. I'm sorry for the trouble. No, it's my duty as her teacher. More importantly, let's keep this between us.
If Allie finds out, it might stress her out. So please keep this between us. That seems to be the case. Understanding this, I didn't mention it to Allie. Later, after Allie had gone to bed, I quietly shared this with Tom.
What? What's the teacher doing? That's why, the teacher is being considerate. But he's not doing anything, right? Isn't that neglecting his duties?
Tom got upset. I hurriedly tried to calm him down.
No, that's not it. The teacher did talk to the others. But in the end, he didn't do anything, did he? Maybe, but the teacher can't just interfere recklessly, right?
If the teacher intervenes too much in the kids' relationships, it could make things worse. Tom reluctantly agreed after I explained this.
All right. Let's just watch over Allie for a while. That sounds good. And I have a suggestion.
As part of watching over Allie, I made a suggestion. It was about installing security cameras. We live in a used single-family home, which has less impact on the neighbors regarding noise than an apartment would. Normally, that's a benefit, but it becomes a downside when I think about Allie being home alone. My mother-in-law comes over during the day, but there are still a few hours when Ali is alone. Considering the possibility that something could happen and no one would notice due to the lack of noise.
I agree. I'd rather have security cameras.
Tom quickly agreed that having security cameras would be a good idea. That's how we ended up installing them. However, I was concerned that obvious security cameras might make us the subject of gossip among the neighbors. I didn't mind, but Tom was adamantly opposed. The reason was his job in construction. It's true, people in construction often have a tough exterior. In fact, Tom looks intimidating. He's well-built and could be mistaken for someone dangerous. Adding security cameras would only reinforce that image. He didn't care how he was perceived, but he didn't want Ali to be thought of as the child of such a person. So, we reluctantly opted for less conspicuous cameras. Nevertheless, we hoped the cameras would never be needed. Therefore, Tom and I adjusted our work schedules to spend as much time as possible with Ali. We asked my mother-in-law to do the same. And she readily agreed. Ideally, quitting my job would have been best. But we live paycheck to paycheck on dual incomes, so I had to keep working. Months passed with no significant change in Ali. She still couldn't go to school and hardly ever left her room. But she did talk to Tom and me. She also responded to communications from Mr. Smith. One day, before going to work, I decided to check on her.
I'm heading to work, but how are you doing today?
There was no reply from Ali. Feeling something was wrong, I asked in a stern voice.
Ali? Are you okay?
Still no response. I rushed into Ali's room, only to find her curled up in pain beside the bed.
Ali! What's wrong?
Without hesitation, I called an ambulance. Ali was quickly taken to the hospital, where I work. But there, we discovered something totally unexpected. Ali was pregnant. I almost collapsed when the doctor told me. Soon, Tom arrived. I had to tell Tom about Ali's pregnancy.
What?
What are we going to do?
Who's the father?
Tom was pressing me for answers. But there was no way I could know. Later, when Ali woke up, Tom tried to question her. Realizing that was a bad idea, I had to kick Tom out of the room. Then, alone with Ali, I asked her about the father. However, Ali remained silent. She never disclosed the name of the father.
Staying silent won't solve anything. You can't possibly think of having and raising a child on your own. I'll be fine. I'll definitely have this baby and raise it. You can't possibly think that's going to be easy.
I was just stating the obvious. Yet, Ali vehemently retorted.
What do you mean by that? We're worried about you. I'll be fine.
For some reason, Ali was adamantly against us. I was at my wit's end.
Ali, listen to me. This isn't something you can deal with on your own.
At my words, Ali huffed and turned away. This wasn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, Tom was fuming in the hallway. What to do? I sighed. The fact that Ali was pregnant meant she had been involved with someone. However, Ali hadn't been leaving the house lately. So, where and with whom did she get involved? How are we going to report this to the school? My mind was spinning with various thoughts. But thinking wasn't getting us anywhere. I decided to tackle things one at a time. Starting with reporting to the school. I left Ali in Tom's care and headed to the school. Unfortunately, Mr. Smith was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I ended up speaking with the school nurse. I'm the school nurse, Thompson. How can I help you today?
Actually,
I told Thompson about Ali's pregnancy. And then asked about things at school. When it comes to a child's social circle, school classmates are usually the most significant group. And often, students might share things with the school nurse that they wouldn't tell their teacher. That's what I was thinking when I asked, but I was told something totally unexpected.
Indeed, Ali has many friends. Recently, friends concerned about her have come to my office. Is that true? They've been messaging, but they said they really wanted to meet in person.
At that moment, something clicked in me. I remembered what Mr. Smith had said.
Allie had a bad relationship with her classmates and was isolated at school.
Mr. Smith had described Allie's situation like that. But it seems the truth was a bit different. Perhaps there was someone who came to visit Allie. With that thought, I checked the security cameras at home.
Maybe among those who came to visit, there was a boy.
I continued to watch the footage stored on the cloud with that sole purpose. And finally, I found that person. I was taken aback by this surprising figure.
No way! Is this Allie's?
I was shocked in front of my computer. People lie, but the footage from the security cameras never lies. That means what I'm watching is the truth. Faced with this unbelievable reality, I was dumbfounded. But at the same time, anger started to well up inside me. I can't forgive this person, not ever. For Allie's future, I cannot overlook this. The one who toyed with Allie will surely pay, so they better be ready. With that vow in my heart, I copied the security footage to my smartphone. Then, I returned to Allie's room, had Tom step out, and talked to Allie alone.
Allie, just to confirm first, this is the person, right?
I showed her the footage on my smartphone. Allie turned red with anger. Then, with a fierce look, Allie tried to snatch the smartphone from me.
Give it to me! No way. This is the person, right?
When I pressed her, Allie quietly nodded. I let out a deep sigh. The person captured on the security camera was Mr. Smith. However, Mr. Smith had also visited when I was around. It was a visit for a student not attending school. That's how I perceived it. In fact, Mr. Smith had only talked with Tom and me. He only spoke to Allie through her room door. That's why Tom and I had felt safe allowing Mr. Smith in. But it wasn't just a mere home visit. It seemed to be for building a relationship with Allie. Moreover, Mr. Smith had been visiting Allie when the house was empty, choosing times carefully. However, he hadn't entered through the front door. He went around to the backyard and entered through a window into Allie's room. If he went from the entrance to the room, the indoor security camera would capture him. Mr. Smith must have noticed the indoor security camera when he visited. That's why he must have devised such a scheme to avoid being caught on camera. Anyway, we hadn't noticed until now. The reason we hadn't noticed is simple. Not once did the security camera capture Mr. Smith using the window to enter Allie's room. We had told Allie about the security camera installation. In fact, Allie had turned this to her advantage. First, Allie hung clothes in front of the security camera installed on the wall of her room. She used them as a cover to invite Mr. Smith into her room. Of course, after Mr. Smith left, she quickly removed the clothes to avoid suspicion. If this happened every day or several times, surely we would scold her for making the security camera pointless. But what if it happened only occasionally, just for an hour or two? Was wondering if you just wanted to hang some clothes out. That would be the simple dismissal of the act. Furthermore, we had more than one security camera. If something happened, it should be captured by another camera. That was our assumption. In the end, we were cunningly deceived. However, the plan wasn't flawless. A careful review of the footage revealed discrepancies. The footage I found was such a discrepancy. When the clothes swayed, Mr. Smith was briefly visible. He was captured talking to Allie through the window, and then entering the room. It was so brief that I had missed it when fast-forwarding through the footage.
When did this start with Mr. Smith? Why?
Well, Allie told me everything. In her eyes, Mr. Smith was her boyfriend. It was unclear how Mr. Smith felt. Allie became embarrassed about the relationship and started staying home. However, after being teased for talking with a teacher at school, Allie became embarrassed about the relationship and started staying home. Worried, Mr. Smith began visiting her at home. Eventually secretly meeting. This way, Allie thought, she wouldn't be teased by others. As a result, Allie continued to withdraw and developed a relationship with Mr. Smith at home. Mr. Smith had confessed his feelings first, and that's how their relationship started. An adult deceiving a child like this, unspeakable anger welled up in me. Regardless, I listened to Allie without interruption, knowing it wasn't right to blame her unilaterally. After hearing her out, I left the hospital room. In the hallway, I whispered to Tom what Allie had told me. Tom nearly shouted in response.
Keep it down. This is a hospital.
Okay, but I won't forgive him. Tom clenched his fist. I understood his feelings all too well. The next day, I called Mr. Smith to our house. I thought he might have heard about Allie's pregnancy from the school nurse. But Mr. Smith hadn't heard anything. In fact, when I called him, he asked,
Is something the matter?
So, I only told him that Allie was hospitalized and asked him to come to the house because I wanted to talk. When Mr. Smith arrived and saw him, Tom raised his voice.
You! What have you done to my daughter? What do you mean? Don't play dumb.
I struggled to hold back Tom as he tried to lunge at Mr. Smith. After calming Tom down, I told Mr. Smith about Allie's pregnancy. Mr. Smith turned pale at the moment. He immediately apologized.
I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it.
Worried that the neighbors might overhear, I covered Tom's mouth with my hand.
Be quiet for a bit. The neighbors could hear. But if this turns into a rumor, the one who suffers is Allie.
I gave Tom a stern look. And he bit his lip, staying quiet. From there, I decided to talk to Mr. Smith myself. First, I wanted to know what he thought about Allie.
It may sound cowardly to say, but I was serious about that.
Serious? With a kid? Do you even know how old you are?
I am aware. But
I admit there were parts where I went too far. But I was sincerely dating Allie. I was even considering marriage. Mr. Smith shared such thoughts. But that was impossible to believe. Tom felt the same way.
Don't mess with me. I'm gonna report you to the cops, so be prepared. Please, anything but that. Shut up. There's no way I can forgive you.
Tom raised his voice. Mr. Smith flinched and said in a small voice.
But for Allie's sake.
If he cared about Allie, it would be better not to escalate the situation. I understand that. But it's the same as overlooking a crime. I couldn't do that. Still, what was the right thing to do? Let's decide after we hear Allie's side of the story.
But her feelings are what matter most. You understand, right?
Tom reluctantly nodded at my words. In the end, what to do was left undecided. I absolutely couldn't forgive him. But it wasn't as simple as just punishing him. What would Allie think if we did? That was my only concern. Leaving that aside, first, I wanted to go to Allie. Even though she was hospitalized, I couldn't just leave her alone.
For now, let's go see Allie,
I said after much thought. Allie is at a sensitive and difficult age. Moreover, she is adamant about having the baby. I hoped we could find the best solution. That's what I was thinking when I started getting ready to visit Allie. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was the hospital's number, and I answered it with a feeling of dread.
What? Allie has.
What was hurriedly conveyed to me was that Allie had a critical change in her condition. Tom and I exchanged glances and rushed to the hospital. Upon arrival, Allie was in the treatment room. The doctor informed us of a cruel reality. I see. What the doctor told us was that Allie's baby had passed away. Later, when Allie had calmed down, I talked to her about the baby she was pregnant with. About Allie's baby. I know. Allie began to cry. I hugged her tightly. Holding Allie as she cried loudly reminded me of when she was a newborn. Perhaps her feelings for Mr. Smith were genuine. Maybe not now, but eventually. Such feelings welled up inside me. But those were Allie's unilateral feelings. Right after, I came to know an extremely harsh truth. After Allie stopped crying, Tom and I left the hospital room. We decided to leave her be for a while. While talking with Tom, my phone suddenly rang with a call from Thompson.
It's Thompson. Do you have a moment? Yes, what is it? Well,
Thompson's story went like this. Just a short while ago, arriving late for personal reasons, Thompson happened to see Mr. Smith making a phone call in a corner of the hallway. At that time, Mr. Smith was saying something like this on the phone. "This is bad. She got pregnant.
I was just fooling around.
This is the worst." Moreover, Mr. Smith continued by saying that he had been scolded by the father during the first home visit. Angry about it, he thought he'd toy with the daughter. And now, he was in this mess after making a move. He had even lied about the child being isolated, thinking he had managed well, but now it turned troublesome. He complained about expecting complaints from the parents again, saying it was a complete mess over the phone. The moment Thompson heard this, she was shocked. It had to be about Allie. That was immediately what Thompson thought. So, she casually approached Mr. Smith. He started to panic when suddenly spoken to. And he persistently asked if Thompson had heard his conversation.
I replied that I hadn't heard anything, but I was sure it was about Allie. Is that so? But if that's true,
Allie was merely toyed with. And Mr. Smith lied to us as well. I was at the end of my tether. I looked at Tom and thanked Thompson. "Thank you for letting us know. We'll head over there shortly," I said and hung up, then relayed Thompson's story to Tom. Needless to say, Tom was furious. However, we were in a hospital, so we couldn't raise our voices. We decided to direct our anger at Mr. Smith later and first talk to a lawyer. We also contacted my mother-in-law to ask her to stay with Allie at our place. After that, Tom and I left the hospital and rushed to a law firm. Through the lawyer, we got in touch with Mr. Smith's residence. We had heard that Mr. Smith was temporarily living at his parents' home due to commuting reasons. So, our plan was to call his parents and discuss the future. But Mr. Smith's parents were not at home. Instead, a young woman was there. The woman who came after our contact introduced herself as Mr. Smith's fiancée. "I'm his fiancée. I had the day off today and was tasked with cleaning the house."
I see. So, what brings you here? Well,
we didn't hold back, even though she was his fiancée. Mr. Smith had done that much. Neither Tom nor I hesitated to spill everything to Mr. Smith's fiancée. As we spoke, the fiancé's complexion visibly changed.
What is this? I can't forgive him. It's not the first or second time he's cheated.
The fiancée slammed the table. Then she said to us,
"Anyway, I'm so sorry for what my fiancé has done." Well, it's not like apologizing to us, Will.
"Right.
I'll make him apologize."
Well, not that it settles anything. The fiancée clenched her back teeth. Then, she stood up. "Please come with me.
This time, I absolutely won't forgive that man."
She beckoned us. It seemed like she was on our side. This could work in our favor, so we decided to follow the fiancé. The fiancé and we headed to the school. It was clear that Mr. Smith would be there, as indicated by Thompson's call. We went straight to the staff room. It happened to be break time, so Mr. Smith and a few other teachers were there. Mr. Smith, who noticed us quickly, approached us. He said, while avoiding eye contact,
"Why are you here?"
"We need to talk."
"Then, let's go to the conference room,"
Mr. Smith suggested, trying to leave the staff room. However, the fiancé grabbed his arm.
"Why are you running away?" "No, I'm not running away. Besides, why are you here? I heard you did something despicable."
The fiancée raised her voice. At that moment, Mr. Smith flinched, but then began to play dumb with a smirk.
"What are you talking about? I haven't done anything."
"Don't lie. I heard you got a girl pregnant." As soon as the fiancé said that, the atmosphere in the staff room changed. The surrounding staff began to murmur.
What are you talking about? That's not possible.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Stop making excuses and admit it. The fiancé shouted. Then, as if giving up, Mr. Smith began to kneel.
It's not like that. It was.
Moreover, I heard you deceived her, saying you were serious, that you intended to marry her.
Well.
Sweat began to bead on Mr. Smith's forehead. I stared at Mr. Smith intently.
So I was really planning to marry her.
Mr. Smith tried to make an excuse seriously. But no one was listening.
Even though you have a fiancé? Well.
By this point, his explanation was completely incoherent. To deliver the final blow, I stepped forward.
Mr. Smith, you were planning to marry my daughter even though you have a fiancé?
No, I intended to break up with her. Mr. Smith began, but at that moment, the fiancée stomped her foot.
That's a brilliant idea. I want to break up too. Wait, just a minute.
Enough. Shut up. I'm going to demand a hefty alimony from you. The fiancé said, and Mr. Smith's shoulders slumped. But I wasn't about to forgive him. I pressed on further.
Plus, I heard you confessed it was just a game with my daughter. No. Thompson heard it.
I said, and Mr. Smith looked back at Thompson, who quietly nodded. At the same time, Mr. Smith crumbled. Then Tom delivered the final blow.
No settlements. You're getting reported to the police.
Engaging with a minor is not permissible, even with consent. But Mr. Smith, not willing to give up, kept begging Tom.
Please, anything but the police. Shut up. Criminals should stay quiet.
Tom rebuked him sternly, and Mr. Smith was left speechless. Afterward, Tom called the police on the spot. However, it doesn't mean he was arrested immediately. Unless caught in the act, arrests typically follow an investigation. Indeed, Mr. Smith was taken from the scene, but at the police station, he was only questioned and was allowed to go home that day. However, what awaited him at home was a battlefield. Naturally, because Mr. Smith's fiancée and we had told his parents everything he had done. According to the fiancée, who told us later, there was quite a commotion. Also, the talk of marriage was off the table. The next day, Mr. Smith was questioned by the higher-ups at the education board. The questioning took place in a conference room, where Mr. Smith sat with a pale face, looking down. The moment he returned to the staff room, he reportedly cried like a child, which is quite laughable. Though it might be a bit exaggerated, Thompson told us this story later as what he saw. But I believe it's largely accurate. Because I saw Mr. Smith afterward. By the evening of that day, Mr. Smith came to our house with people from the education board to apologize. He was crying in front of Tom and me. Of course, we didn't forgive him, and even now, with Mr. Smith arrested, we still haven't forgiven him. Mr. Smith is currently awaiting trial. He has quit his job and is shut in at home. After Mr. Smith's arrest, Allie was quite depressed. She probably realized for the first time that she had been deceived. But Allie never spoke about it. We didn't say anything either. Mentioning it wouldn't heal Allie's wounded heart.
All we can do is be there for Allie.
Tom and I discussed. There might be other things we could do. Yet, it's probably best to quietly watch over her until Allie can process this on her own. And I am convinced that Allie won't be defeated by something like this. Recently, Allie has begun to regain her smile. Indeed, Allie is my pride and joy. I strongly feel that now.